Guys, if you haven't put it together yet, your old buddy scrambling armchair can't stand the mainstream media, can't stand mainstream narratives, can't stand the legacy media, can't stand any of those types of things. I think that YouTube and X and all of these places where we get genuine creator-based content is better for everyone. And I am going to do my best to dispel an article from the mainstream legacy media today from NFL.com. And the stat with which we will end this video is absolutely eye-opening and something that is so wild, I had to check it from two different sources, technically four different sources because of the nature of the statistic itself. And I couldn't believe it. The article in question today, Raiders Chiefs on Black Friday, what we learned from Kansas City's win over Las Vegas, from NFL.com by author Nick Shook. It was I believe, a 4-point article, and I'm going to start by sharing with you the first point the article makes. Chiefs win ugly once again. Kansas City is now 11-1 after outlasting an inferior opponent in a game they likely should have won by double digits. They certainly had their opportunities, including 5 red zone trips, but scored just 1 touchdown out of those 5 chances. Credit can be given to the Raiders' defense, which sacked Patrick Mahomes 5 times, including twice in the Raiders' red zone. But those who have watched the Chiefs know these struggles aren't exclusive to Black Friday. Kansas City has found ways to win, but they're far from a perfect operation. Mahomes is still having a hard time connecting with Xavier Worthy. Their missed third down attempt in the fourth quarter was emblematic of their struggles, and even DeAndre Hopkins, who is largely settling into his key role, dropped a third down pass attempt out of heroism in the third quarter. They also seem to be lost for the answers in the red zone, especially when defenses take away quick slants along the goal line. Luckily, Las Vegas's late offensive explosion appeared to wake up the Chiefs, who need such a call at this stage in the season, much like the one they received from the Raiders on Christmas Day last year. We'll see if this game helps them build momentum entering December. This is not one of the official, sanctified talking points of this video, but I want to talk about how silly it is to use the phrase, we'll see if this game helps the team build momentum entering December, when the team is 11-1 entering December. The team is 1 game short of as perfect as it could be heading into the month of November. All of the momentum in the NFL is with the Kansas City Chiefs. But let's dive into the talking points. This opening spiel by our author states that the Kansas City Chiefs likely should have beat the Raiders by double digits. I mean, yeah, maybe. Okay, sure. According to who? Las Vegas? And I don't mean the Raiders. I mean the betting apparatus. Who cares what Vegas thinks? Who cares? This is a division game, for one. A game between two opponents that really, really know each other, for one. This is a game between two opponents who really know about each other in the only division. I believe this is the only division in the NFL. I should check again, but right now, the AFC West is slated to have 3 representatives in the playoffs. If the playoffs started today, Kansas City, the Kansas City Chiefs, have the number 1 spot in the AFC bracket. They have already clinched a spot in the postseason. But if the season ended right now, the final 2 representatives in the AFC would be the Chargers and the Broncos. Now, is that the lowly Raiders? No, it's not. But that speaks to the overall competitiveness of the division writ large. So should the Kansas City Chiefs have beaten the Raiders by a double-digit margin, who is to say isn't that something silly. The next thing I want to address here is when the article suggests that DeAndre Hopkins drop was out of a heroic attempt. A heroic attempt by Mahomes. If you go back and you watch that play, it was wild, the fact that Mahomes was able to get the ball off at that angle. But I think that this is, at this point, sort of indicative of something about Mahomes and his presence in the NFL. DeAndre Hopkins is a veteran. DeAndre Hopkins is a veteran known for his catching radius. DeAndre Hopkins is a veteran known for his ability to catch the ball in traffic. He dropped that ball. I don't think he will drop those passes and passes like that for the entire season or into the postseason, but it is wild to observe that even a player who is as solidified as DeAndre Hopkins, even a player who is as who has the reputation of DeAndre Hopkins, who has the highlight packages on YouTube of DeAndre Hopkins, even that player once in a while sees the angle and the velocity that a football comes out of Patrick Mahomes' hands and does not know how to adjust. Even someone as storied as Nuke Hopkins will occasionally encounter a pass from Patrick Mahomes that he just does not know what to do with. That is wild, and I think that it is something that will actually benefit the Kansas City Chiefs as they try to add wide receivers through the draft. Will it take these players a moment to reconnect with Patrick Mahomes, to figure out how to catch a pass from Patrick Mahomes? Yeah, it will. But once they've done that, it will be... Imagine being a defensive back trying to pick off Patrick Mahomes as he throws one of those wild passes. That's one of the reasons that we have seen so many of these turnover-worthy plays from Patrick Mahomes end up just falling haplessly to the turf. The last thing in this opening point from the article that I want to take, with which I want to take umbrage, this observation that it's been a hard time connecting between Xavier Worthy and Patrick Mahomes. To an extent, yes. To an extent, sure. The last 3 weeks, Xavier Worthy has added 161 of his 407 receiving yards on this season. Early in the season, he was converting about 50% of his targets into receptions. Over the last 3 weeks, he's converted 72% of his targets into receptions. This has come as Xavier Worthy has been running a multitude of routes as opposed to just going deep, as opposed to just dragging across the field. He's running more different kinds of routes, getting targeted more often, and converting those targets for receptions. This should be terrifying to opposing defenses. One of the things that we saw last year with Rashee Rice was that late in the season, well, it was about the halfway point for Rashee Rice, he started to really come on. He changed the entire trajectory of his rookie season around that midseason mark and ended up being a number one wide receiver by the time the playoffs got here. But what we saw from Rashee Rice in the playoffs was different than what we had seen during the season. Once the Kansas City Chiefs got into the playoffs, they were no longer just targeting Rashee Rice at the line of scrimmage and saying, hey, go butt some heads. No, he was running crossing routes. He was running downfield. So much in the same way that in the postseason we started seeing Mahomes run more often, in the postseason we started seeing his wide receiver targets run different routes. What is it that we will see from Xavier Worthy come the playoffs? I don't know, but I am certainly interested to see when we get there, because I think that there will be another evolution in his game. But again, 161 of his 407 yards have come in the past 3 weeks. A 40-yard game, a 60-yard game, a 50-yard game. He is emerging as a target for Patrick Mahomes. He is becoming a more reliable target for Patrick Mahomes. Early in the season, he was converting about 50% of his targets for receptions. Over the last 3 weeks, it is 72%. The last point that the article makes is this. Welcome back, Chris Jones. The Chiefs' star defensive tackle has affected most every game in which he's played this season, but he'd gone without a sack since week 4. That 7-game drought, tied for the longest of his with the longest a season tied for the longest within a season of his career, ended Friday when Jones sacked O'Connell on a third down play that began at the Kansas City 4-yard line, forcing the Raiders to settle for a field goal. Jones added another sack later in the quarter, ending a drive near midfield by taking down O'Connell on 3rd and 9. He's obviously a massive part of the Chiefs' defense, and seeing him get back in the sack column is an encouraging sign for a defense that, judging by the current state of their offense, might be counted on even more in the 2024 postseason than it was a year ago. 2 talking points here. Number 1, it's not Chris Jones. It's not welcome back Chris Jones. Chris Jones has been here. It's welcome back Charles Omenihu. Charles Omenihu is having the effect on this defensive line that we thought he would. He might not be accumulating the stats emerging from this week against the Raiders with simply 1 assisted tackle all the livelong game. However, his presence does not allow opposing offensive lines to just focus on Chris Jones, to just focus on chipping George Karlaftis. There is more that has to be taken into account. Now, I say this a little bit nearly facetiously because obviously the article is not saying welcome back to the lineup, Chris Jones. It's saying welcome back to the sack department. Welcome back to the impact that you were having on the field. I don't care. It's not welcome back Chris Jones. It's welcome back Charles Omenihu still, because the effect that Chris Jones was able to have was prompted by the sudden presence of Charles Omenihu. So, yeah, eat it. Eat it. The final point that I want to make here is an interesting one, something that, like I said at the beginning of the article, I had to check over a couple times. Judging by the current state of the offense, I did this wrong. He's obviously a massive part of the Chiefs' defense about Chris Jones, and seeing him get back in the sack column is an encouraging sign for a defense that, judging by the current state of their offense, might be counted on even more in the 2024 postseason than it was a year ago, saying this Chiefs defense is going to be counted on more in the postseason because the offense isn't as good. Well, maybe I did something wrong, but all of the sources that I checked, the Kansas City Chiefs offense, and this is wild. The Kansas City Chiefs offense is averaging 2.3 more points per game than it was last year. Every game the Kansas City Chiefs play, they are scoring 2.3 more points per game through their offense. The Kansas City Chiefs defense is allowing 2.3 more points per game. Every tenth of a point that the Kansas City Chiefs offense is scoring more than last year, their defense is giving up more than last year. A wild I don't know that I've never noticed anything that perhaps odd in all of the statistics that I have ever looked at analyzing football. But the article suggests that the offense is struggling more than last year. That's not true. The article suggests that the defense might be stronger than last year. That appears not to be true as well. So, I think that what's going to happen is just what we saw last year. The Kansas City Chiefs offense will hit the postseason and look better. The Kansas City Chiefs defense will hit the postseason and be every bit as good as they need to be. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on the channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.